Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Well, hello. Welcome to LinkedUp Breaking Boundaries in Education. We are doing an in-person podcast again, and we're really excited for it. Today, we are at CoSN where are we? We're in Austin, Texas.
Yes.
Everyone's been traveling. We have to remember when we wake up where we are. And this has been one fantastic conference. So it's been great, Jerri, right?
It has been. It's always been. I love coming to CoSN. There is so much learning, and it feels like a family here. You just get to know people so well. Yeah. But before we begin, I want to say happy birthday, CoSN.
Yes.
This is their 30th year. And our guest, Keith Krueger, has been a part of CoSN for 28 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's some scary pictures of
you.
Yes, and I didn't always have white hair, and, So.
Oh, that's great.
Check out the website, people.
That's right.
Timeline that people can laugh.
I was playing around with that timeline. That's fun.
And I think, Keith, my gosh, think of where you were 28 years ago with technology.
Where we all were.
Yeah.
And where we are now.
We'll show a picture today on the afternoon general session.
Yes.
Showing what the cutting edge technology. So maybe you had
fantastic.
Did you have a Palm Pilot?
Yes.
What's the purpose of the Palm Pilot? You kept all your contacts.
Yes.
Calendar.
Did you have a for music
MP3 or I had the thing that was the size of a pack of gum.
Yeah.
Apple.
Yeah.
Discman.
The disc.
You were all cool. But did anybody have a cell phone at that point?
It was called a car phone.
Yes, in the bag.
Yes, I did. I had a car phone in 1994. And I, just would plug it in when I needed it. But it was just for travel. Like when I was it was like my emergency little, it was this big. I still have it. It was like this big.
All of that function. And then, of course, what computers looked like then were.
Yes.
Well, we do all that functionality. Of course, it's probably in our pocket.
Yeah.
Right.
And more so.
Yeah.
And 10 times stronger.
Yeah. So that's right. And I often show a slide that shows like all these applications that we do, like video conferencing and others, that they cost like $1 million when they first came out. We added them up. They're all now free on your phone.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy.
And one thing versus a room full of things.
Right.
Well, I think I read that our phone has more computing power than the space capsules in the early years.
Yes, in the early years. Yes, that's right.
Wow.
I remember watching Good Morning America, and they said cell phones are now going to have cameras, and people were like, "Why? What do we use them for?" I mean,
now all the time.
Yes. So we do adapt and move forward. Yes, and then our second guest is Diane Doersch. And I'm so pleased to say that both of you, I got to know through CoSN, actually, coming to CoSN.
Yeah.
And I was always impressed with you and, the presentations and helping people, really trying to move them up. But then over the years, we've all become friends, which is even better.
Yes.
But Diane, you're the new chair of CoSN.
Yes, I am. I have been a board member for how many years? 4 years, something like that.
Yes.
And it was an honor to be asked to be chair. So I'm very happy and excited for what's coming forward, and exhausted because keep over this time, but it's a good busy, and so many new faces here, as well as my community that I've grown up with here.
Right.
As you talked about. So it's like a family reunion here. So right?
It is. And I just see you in every room and that smile on your face.
Yeah.
I can just tell you just love this.
Yeah, I do, because I love seeing the people. We've been behind screens for so long, right? And so
yes.
I recall the first day I had a white shirt on and I have makeup from hugging everybody, right? From the hugs.
Yeah.
From the hugs. It was getting hugged up. But it is so good to see people, and also, like I said, our young next generation leaders. They're here now and they're learning and they're excited.
They are.
Because of that, I'm excited,
Yeah.
right? Because there was a drought, it felt like, where we didn't have a lot of leaders who knew what this job was of leading education technology and school systems. And, you know, I think the programs that we have provided, like the early K-12 CTO.
That's what I was going to say. Yes.
Yep. The CETL, I mean, that has been wonderful in bringing, number one, awareness to the role.
Yes.
And, that time with our superintendents. So our superintendents know and understand, you know, what good planning is like, and that the CTO should be at the cabinet level table, you know, is so important. And so I know I've attended superintendent sessions here and just heard, you know, and those rooms were full of people who kind of want to know, what are superintendents looking for?
Right.
Because what do I need to do to be a future leader to serve at that cabinet level? So we've got people ready.
Yes. I was talking to one last night, and he's in the program, and Donna Williamson is his mentor. And he said, you know, first of all, it's taught me so much because he came from the business sector, not from education. So he said, I had a lot to learn, but I've learned so much. But he said, the thing I love is the mentorship. And knowing I can call somebody and I can get some assistance immediately. And it's just been a great program. So,
Where people come in with different skill sets. Or background. So, you know, education background is the largest, and we're seeing a slight growth in that, and about 55%, but about 40% have technical backgrounds. And then there's a mix of like business backgrounds or military. So it's a hybrid career path. And so nobody comes in with everything. Even if they have a degree, a master's or PhD, we think they still need to learn the other side that they don't know.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the power here. And I think that's a gift that you have, is connecting people and building relationships and that mentorship quality in you. So I think this is a perfect role for you. So congratulations.
And our first chair of color.
Color. That's really fantastic. You must feel really proud about that too.
Well, and you know, I am. And I know also that in the early years, there was mainly men, white men. And then through the years, we've seen people from more diverse backgrounds here. And now we're starting to see more women as well. And so, you know, if it can be the visibility, the feeling of belonging and welcomeness here, that, you know, because I've had people say, well, do I belong here? You know, and it's syndrome. Yes. And it's like, yes, you belong here. We're all learning. If you feel you don't know stuff, well, believe me, I don't know stuff either. And so I feel fortunate. I have had very good mentors in my past. And they've been great role models for me on how to mentor. And so I too, through the early K-12 CTO Academy, have had wonderful young leaders. You know, and as we talk about staffing or room arrangements or communication with your Department of Technology, or even silly things like getting your rosters ready for your phone, and how a hyphen in a name can cause identity problems, right? New records are created because of that. And so we talk about some of those technical issues as well. And so I think they really appreciate that someone, you know, has been in those down the road before them. And I certainly say, okay, here are the mistakes I made. Here's where I messed up. And I'm not afraid to admit that or be vulnerable about it. I always called it lessons learned. And I feel fortunate that my staff kind of took on that mentality as well.
And even that mentorship, I've noticed too, one of the most important things that I think you probably shared, I know with Eva Mendoza, was to not wear heels as you're walking from meeting to meeting, but bring your flats. So I think that's probably one of the most important things.
I agree. I mean, we are practical as well, right? So you will always find a large bag and flats in the bag.
Well, this morning we had a breakfast to honor the volunteers of CoSN, and I think they are really a stronghold of CoSN. But Well, I've been in a rural district and then more of a suburban district. And I have to say that the resources that you have, especially when I was in a rural district, were so critical because I didn't have a staff that could do that. I'd like you to speak just a little bit about some of those resources because I want everybody to have their hands on them because they're so good.
We've got a lot of membership initiatives, whether it's cybersecurity or interoperability, digital equity, privacy of student data. And a lot of, we're both a membership organization, but we have a mission. And so a lot of toolkits, resources, case studies, things like that are made available for free to the community because of partners like ClassLink and others who help enable us to provide those for free to everyone. We also have really high quality things that are behind the member wall. So if you're not a member, get a member. So today we're, there's a lot of conversation and has been since December about ChatGPT.
Yes, hot topic.
First of all, we have a public resource that we've had for 2 years, a toolkit on AI in education. And it kind of lays out big picture, what are the advantages, disadvantages, what's kind of, where would it apply?
Right.
And we've just refreshed that. That's available for free to anyone. But what we put out today is something on generative AI. So ChatGPT is just one type. And in fact, it will probably be and already is being replaced by other kind of generative applications. And what the CoSN member exclusive brief does is help you as the leader be thoughtful about how to have a conversation with your superintendent, your school board, your curriculum folks, your teachers, and there's just this natural inclination to say, we got to ban it. And we've been down that path before on lots of things, whether it was the World Wide Web, whether it was Google Docs, whatever.
Calculators. When I was in school.
The two of us are old enough for
That's right.
We were on the receiving end, not on the banning end. But that's the point is the fact of the matter is kids and teachers have a way to find these things probably in their pocket or backpack. And banning is a losing battle. So how do we think about what the opportunity is? And there are opportunities, but only if done thoughtfully.
Well, and yesterday, Michael Horn said about this, that if you ban it, the students that have the ability to get it will have it. And so now, again, it's another equity issue. So, I thought that was an important point.
It's not only banning, but the cheating. So we live in a world where access is available. So if all you're assessing on is fact-based information, but actually, just because ChatGPT says something is true, doesn't necessarily mean it's true. So how do we use that as a first draft? And then say to the student, okay, you have to research. Is it true? And come back with your own writing, telling what you think is true.
Fact check. I mean, it really just goes back to this, as you mentioned before, Google searching, finding anything, they're going to cheat. It's the same thing. It should be a resource. It's just a resource. And to your point, teaching methods need to change that's the concern, because it really needs to be about higher order thinking skills, critical thinking, as opposed to, just memorization.
All of us lived in a world when scarcity of knowledge was the challenge. We had to go to the library. That's no longer the problem. The problem is too much information. How do you sort what's good, what's true?
Fact check.
Curating.
And that's a good segue into the theme this year. It's Reimagine, Redesign, and Renew. Why that theme?
I think they're, coming out of the pandemic. There is a lot of exhaustion, and education, K-12, is like a big ship. It takes a lot to turn it. And one of the biggest challenges we see is inertia.
You're right.
And inertia is we saw in that moment, there were lots of things that didn't go well, that we did wrong or whatever. But I tell you, we saw that when there was an imperative, there couldn't be education because of the virus. We were able with technology to provide it in most cases pretty quickly. And places that had 5-year plans to get to 1-to-1 overnight had to do.
Right.
So when it is possible to change. It is possible to move quickly if we have clear vision and if we have the sense of imperative.
Right.
That is our opportunity. And what is our enemy? Inertia. And that is what the theme is about.
Well, and that part about, have we heard people say, well, I can't wait to get back to normal.
Yeah.
Back to the way it was. And, there are some things, yes, that did kind of go off the rails, right? When we had to do this quick pivot. But now that we're back, do we want the way to go back to the way it was? No, let's take the best things that we got from the pandemic that we learned about, and the mobility, the ability to differentiate for our students, to communicate in a different way with them. Let's keep those good things and let's shed those things that didn't work, or build solutions
and
for
I
it
think
in
there
a
are
new way.
things too. We do, Jerri, you're part of the Driving K-12 Innovation. We do an annual thing on what trends are most important around innovation, and social emotional well-being was never in the past a conversation that we had in a technology conference before the pandemic. But the pandemic showed that actually you can't learn if students and teachers and parents aren't well. So I think that for the technology community, it's how do we design technology? Because technology is neither great nor bad.
Right.
How do we design it to enhance people's well-being? And there are lots of examples, simple ways to do that as you're starting a class, to do the smiley face. And, you're happy, unhappy, and that individually can tell you about a student that's really struggling. It also might tell us that everyone in the room is unhappy. So maybe there's something we need to do before we start the lesson.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's about leveraging those silver linings that we gained from COVID, and instead of going backward, right? But think about how we can use those to reimagine.
One of my favorite ones is the virtual parent teacher conference, because I think that really has helped families not to have to come to the school
once a year.
Yes, I just really like that. And I also think that we romanticized what it was like before the pandemic, because it was not perfect for a lot of kids. And so we need to get over that notion as well, and move forward in that direction. But as we come to the conference, what are some of the tracks or themes or presenters? What are they talking about?
Interesting topics that I haven't seen before.
What did you notice?
Well, we talked about diversity before. There's an LGBTQ group. I saw a lot of conversations about hiring practices, creating a pipeline for technology positions. So starting with students. And I think all of that is so important. And a lot of time, and I think this is the time where people can think about and plan ahead, because especially in technology positions, it's go, go, go. So this is the perfect time to really regroup and think about that. So what are some other things that are trending?
Well, sustainability.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, there's been a whole bunch of money.
We got it all.
Into our districts, right? Bought all this stuff, or we might have money to spend yet. But what are you going to do once that funding goes away? Now, I preached that 3 years ago, right?
You were
with Digital Promise.
Yes.
The sustainability toolkit, in fact, is being presented here. But there have been other sessions on sustainability as well, because as these devices were purchased, wonderful, but they're getting old now. How are we going to replace them? What data collection should we have done at the beginning to see what apps are being used the most, which ones aren't being used, so that we can cut those? You know, so it's those kinds of conversations. Scarcity of workforce, right? I mean, that's another one. You named off a whole bunch of things and how we're responding. Hearing, there aren't people out there who want these jobs. It's like, that's untrue. We're just looking in the wrong place. And so, talking about where we should look and how we should lower the barriers. Job descriptions shouldn't be asking for all these certifications, have technical jargon, those types of things, because you know what? We've got adults who know technology, who are working in our libraries, who might be working in point of service for the food program. They can talk kids through technology. They can become leaders in a technology department, right? And so I think we're just looking in the wrong place.
That's a good point. And then being part of CoSN, you have all the supports to gain some of those different technical skills that maybe might be needed down the line. But absolutely, that's such a good point. You don't need to start up here with all these letters attached to your name if you have.
Well, and I just came from a great spotlight session with kids from Lakota School District in Ohio. And they've started a cyber academy. And the kids get Cisco certified or whatever.
Love that.
And they're doing real, it's not a class. They do job, they get job internships. And by the time those kids graduate from high school, they're offered $60,000 jobs. A lot of kids are negotiating half-time jobs, and then they're going to college, having their college paid for by the employer. There were just amazing kids that were presenting an hour ago about that. And I think that raises, the issue of staffing is one of the huge trends in the driving K-12 innovation.
Right.
It's not only a teacher problem, it's an IT problem.
Yes, it is.
And so we've worked with the state directors of technology to put out some resources about only, last year it was 1 in 5, about 20% of school districts had a full-time equivalent on cybersecurity.
Oh,
We're putting out yesterday the new data, and it got worse. It's only 16%. We went the wrong direction. So most school districts are saying it's a part of your job.
Right.
So we've tried to create job descriptions that would be for different people in your district and what their responsibility would be around cybersecurity. But also we have to think in new ways, like with students, or maybe you need a partnership with your community college or your vocational college or the university down the block and offer internships and mentorships and early career kinds of opportunities. Right. We got to grow this problem because the human capacity, you can have all the tools, and if nobody's there to lead it and run it, it isn't going to do anything.
Right. And security is a big issue right now that districts are worried about.
It's the number one issue, and it's for our audience. This is I think the 5th year that it's been
number one
issue.
Yeah.
The surprising things we asked the second question, look at these different challenges like ransomware or DDoS.
Right.
Are you at high risk, somewhat risk, medium risk, or low risk? And almost everyone is underestimating what they're.
Yes.
The K-12 is the number one targeted sector for ransomware.
So vulnerable.
But only 20% said they were at extreme risk for it, or high risk, medium high to high risk. So, we have the headline right that cybersecurity is a problem, but when we get down to what our real risks are.
Yeah, not at my school. It's
Okay. And that's where, ClassLink was part of the coalition to create that cybersecurity rubric. We'll put this in the show notes, which I think is so wonderful. I gave it to my husband, who's a superintendent, because, he thinks, it's the technology component, and I have a team to do that. And I said, well, you should really be a part of that too. And he knows that. He's, of course, in a small district, so he's curriculum person, tech person. So he's trying to get that knowledge. And I love the fact that that rubric gives you a baseline as to what your maturity level is, and then gives you a roadmap for how to have growth in that maturity. So, and become cyber strong. So, so I think that's fantastic. And then you have a ton of resources at CoSN for that.
We do. And of course, we have some, if you're just getting started, there's kind of a primer, but we also have like a tabletop free exercise that we've created, which taking your team, your superintendent, people from the business office, people from curriculum, and doing an exercise that's timed. This is 7 a.m. You've just gotten notice. You've been attacked. What are you going to do? What are you going to say to the public? What are you going to? So going through that kind of exercise, and then of course, just end user education. Doing phishing attacks are the biggest problem we have. Is we all click on things we shouldn't.
Yes.
click on.
Right.
So
Yes.
doing those kind of testing throughout the year, and it's not to penalize people, but to get them hover over that URL. Yeah, it's no longer that prince from Nigeria that's asking for social security numbers, but someone who looks like you're the superintendent asking the secretary of finance to send all the W-2 forms.
Exactly.
Right.
It's so, and that's where it's so important too, because it's not a matter of, it's cybersecurity month. Let's, do a little thing here, but it's an all year. It's creating a culture of protecting, the school and also themselves. It's for personal protection too, but creating that culture and doing it throughout, starting with students, bringing them in on the act, parents, community. It really does have to get it's a community.
Well, K-12 is just different. I mean, our users are underage mostly.
Right.
Yeah, they're kids. And so how are you going to get a 3 or third grader to do multi-factor authentication?
Right.
Well, ClassLink has a way. Let me just say, and actually, a district in Kansas was telling us that they have their kindergartners doing it, and it's going well.
Yeah.
So if our kindergartners can do it, we can do it.
We can.
Well, again, and our bad actors know that if they can get an identity of a young child, that name and identity could be useful many, many years, because again, maybe it's when a child, fills out the FAFSA to get a student loan, or maybe wants to buy a car. And then that's when all these things are discovered, right?
Yeah, they want them for when they turn 18. And literally file for credit cards for that student. And there was a woman who, 2 years into her college, applied for a credit card and found that she had, $350,000 of debt.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Because her identity had been stolen 2 years earlier.
Well, that same district was telling us they had a student that was applying to college, and they said, "This isn't you."
Yeah.
And someone had stolen his identity. He's had to lay out a year because he has to try to recover his identity. Yeah. And he said it just feels so terrible to this kid.
Even, every week now we have a different district that the employees lose their social security numbers, or they have direct deposit and lose their bank accounts. And we've actually had districts like small rural district in Arizona. Some of the employees had their personal bank accounts drained.
My God.
Yeah, the bad actors are finding other ways to do things, right? A text message from the CEO of my company asking me to send gift card numbers to them, right?
Yes.
I mean, we do have to train our people not to, to be smart about things and know when they're getting phished or scammed, because it's everywhere and it hits you from many, many places.
Yeah.
Right. We just need to be savvy about all this. And
just
train.
Be aware, not be complacent, but always have it in the back of your mind that unfortunately bad actors exist, and to protect ourselves, we just have to be on it all the time.
And what I love about this time at CoSN, in fact, I've seen people having to stand. I don't love this part. People having to stand out in the hallway because the rooms are so full.
Yes.
They're talking about cybersecurity, right?
Yes.
And so these tabletop exercises, the consistent look on cybersecurity, allows for a community of people from diverse school districts to come together and talk about, well, I do this. Ooh, that's a good idea. Ooh, this didn't work.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about CoSN, is it builds a community of practitioners who can be vulnerable, share maybe some things that have not gone well, but they always come out better for it. Right.
Yeah. Building those best practices together as a community. That's fantastic.
So what's on the roadmap coming ahead with CoSN?
That's what I want to hear.
Yes. I am so excited because this is the second strategic plan process that I've been through. When I first got onto the board, I was part of strategic planning. It was a 3-year strategic plan. And so we took time off, I think, because of the pandemic, right? Now we're back to planning again. And we started, I think, last summer or fall, in getting some good facilitators to help us and just a real collaborative process. Our board got together, we talked about it. But then after coming up with some thoughts and ideas, we also were able to hone that down and massage it a bit and then talk to our staff. I mean, here we at the board could come up with this great plan, but if it's not realistic for our small but mighty CoSN staff, then it's not realistic. And so we got that kind of dialogue as well, where, you know, we could tone it down a bit and say, okay, this is what we could be realistic with. And we have benchmarks now. And so, you know, it will be good to see the progress that we'll be making. Now, the whole thing will be released, you know, in a few months, but we've been talking at a high level about things. And so, yeah, I'm glad you asked. We've got 3 big things here that
you'll give us a sneak peek.
Yes. First of all, you know, because of the pandemic and that ability to pivot, we really felt that we need to enable inclusive and nimble technology leadership to drive innovation. Nimble. Okay. That was, you know, we have to be flexible and prepare our leaders to take on the unknown at this point. And be innovative. Sometimes you have to experience scarcity before you come up with those brand new innovations. And also we want to enhance member experience. You know, we can at the board level come up with these great things, have our staff implement them. But if we do not have our state chapters and our individual members using this stuff, you know, it's no good. So I always talk about that last mile, like in when we talk the internet and laying fiber, you know, you've got your main connections, but that last mile to the home is the most important. And so how can we stretch ourselves to meet, you know, the state chapter's needs and our members' needs, so that we are more responsive. These resources are great, but do they know about the resources? Right. So we want to enhance member experience. And we also, and you've heard me talk about it a lot, empower our community. And we're building new communities, right? I mean, we here at this conference, as you've talked about, we've got diversity, equity, and inclusion topics. Tomorrow morning is a women's breakfast. We've got a session for mainly males, but we are inviting females as well on male allyship. How can men work together with women to help elevate underrepresented groups, right? And so these are great skills for all of us to have. Because, you know, again, we need to empower everybody. We want to be an inclusive group. So those were the 3 things. Now, in our past strategic plan, you know, we said we're going to focus on diversity. And it's not like we're not doing that now. We're infusing it into everything now. So for number 1, 2, and 3, diversity, equity, inclusion, and ultimately the sense of belonging is what we're looking for.
Yes, and that's a good point, because we can have separate committees and different isolated opportunities for DEI, but it is more impactful if it is dispersed and infused into everything, because that makes it more meaningful and makes it so that it's actually going to stick and be pervasive. So
yesterday we had the second kind of meetup on the diversity, equity, inclusion. They broke into, you know, tables and did activities and, you know, how to recruit and retain a diverse workforce, and things like that. This afternoon we'll be doing the second ever LGBTQ plus and ally kind of a conversation, followed by a reception. I have to say, as a gay man, it's a complete mind shift, you know, from a few years ago where, you know, at the office, I would never talk about the fact that I had a husband and never have photos or talk about where we went on vacation or things like that.
Oh my gosh.
It's different.
Good. You can be you.
That's right.
Be who they are.
And then down the street, they're protesting at the State House about all of these issues as well. I see on the news.
We just have to live the right way. We can live.
Absolutely.
100%. 100%.
That's great.
Good things ahead. This is very exciting. Very exciting.
It is exciting. And, you know, we have a committed board of directors as well.
Yes.
You know, while we did have some people terming off, right? They had served their 3 years or many more than, you know, one term. And they will be missed. We also have, you know, bring on, and we never, the people who roll off, we never let them just go away.
No.
Once on the circle.
Fortunately.
Always in the circle.
That's good.
So we just make the circle bigger.
Yeah.
But I am, you know, so happy also to welcome, you know, new members, to the board who, again, are leading in various, different, you know, large school districts, smaller school districts, so that we get that perspective. And we're
Yes.
about even now, men and women on the board. Is that correct?
We're probably slightly more women.
Wow.
You know, yeah, CoSN, when we look over the board and the chairmanship of the board, over the 30 years, it's been relatively even, maybe even slightly more women.
Yes, wonderful.
Oh,
Yeah.
this has been a
Support.
delightful conversation. I have really enjoyed it. And we appreciate the work that you do
Very
to
much.
support schools. It's so important. And the more schools we can get connected with CoSN, the better off they will be too.
Well, and thanks for
So-
what you both do to communicate with the community.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it speaks volumes just seeing everyone so happy and just like a community. So
It is.
and it's important to think about that. It's a national community. So it's a big group, but you've made it like a family. And I think you can see that with people
Yeah,
networking
you feel
together
it
and-
when you're
yeah,
here. You
yeah,
really do.
Absolutely. Lots of hugs, lots of hugs.
Yes.
Lots of hugs. As you mentioned, you got the makeup on the arm. So, yeah.
Well, we know you have lots of sessions yet to go to.
I can't believe we were able to carve out this time, quite frankly. So
Yes.
we appreciate
It's
you
progress.
finding us a little bit of time this
Yes.
morning. This
Yes.
morning, it's early morning here, by the way.
That's right.
But always a pleasure to talk with you. And, you know, I just love that you bring in guests who have really great things to share. It's consistently been, you know, one of the
Thank
things
you.
that helps feed our community. So thank you.
Come
Class.
to Miami. If you weren't here this year, come to Miami next year.
Yes.
Seattle the
right.
following
Or
year.
Seattle.
Oh, good. Love to hear where we're headed. So, well, thank you both.
Yes, thank you.
All right. And happy birthday, CoSN.
Happy birthday.
Yes.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify and subscribe to us on YouTube.